My name's Kevin Holmes and I'm here to save you some time if you're replacing the clutch in a Holden, Rodeo, Jackeroo or Frontera. Specifically, I'm talking about any vehicle that uses the 6VD1 engine. It's a 3.2 litre V6, runs a pull type clutch and a hydraulic actuation system. And it's in the hydraulic actuation system where there's a few characteristics that can catch out even the most experienced mechanic. But if you keep an eye on 4 things, you'll have a smooth installation and a great result. So the first of these is actually the bearing. In most kits you'll find a GSB459. The GSB459 should come with this small clip. Being a pull type clutch, the bearing needs to mate with the cover assembly. If you don't have this circlip on the bearing won't mate to the cover assembly. So just as you take out, you can see before it's installed it's quite a loose fit, so it may come free in packaging during transport. Just verify that you have a GSB459 and that you have the circlip available to install with the clutch. Like all good rules, there is an exception, and that's the GSB459-1. You'll only find that in kits which are designated 1121. In those kits, the clip actually has been integrated into the cover assembly, so you won't find the clip on that bearing. A good way of telling the difference is with the part number GSB459-1, you can look at that as GSB459 minus 1 clip. So just look out for the right bearing and make sure that you've got the circlip available to go in. The second thing to look out is the actual fork itself. It's one of these where the design is such that you can install it either way. It looks quite similar either way, but it will only work one way. And you can see here that there is the fork. It can be installed that way or that way. The correct way is where the arc of this section runs closest to the clutch. And you can see that once installed, if you put it in that way, the geometry changes, you won't get release. So again, take 10 seconds, make sure that the fork is orientated the right way, and you'll have no trouble with that. So with the fork in the right orientation, the bearing slips over that, and then you're good to insert that bearing into the cover. The bearing should lock into the cover, and once it's locked in, can't be removed. That tells you that you've got good engagement between the bearing and the cover assembly, and you'll be able to get full release and actuation of the clutch kit. So we'll just move over here to the cover assembly. So being a pull type cover, it's very important that you get full engagement or a full lock of the bearing into the cover assembly. Without it, you won't get full actuation, you won't get release. So as the bearing's coming in, you'll see it go in there, it pushes home, and you'll hear that click. Once you've got that, just verify that it's locked on. If it's locked on, you don't have a problem, and that bearing will stay in place. This is actually a clip and bearing design developed by Clutch Industries to strengthen this. There were some issues where the lock wasn't as strong as it should be, so we developed a new system, and this is an extremely strong lock. So there you have it. The third thing to look out for is in the bleeding of the hydraulics itself. The hydraulics involve 3 components. You have a master cylinder, you have a slave cylinder, and you have a dampener valve between the 2. Now then, while you've got 3 components, you've actually only got 1 bleeder valve, and that's on the slave cylinder at the base of the unit. It also happens to be the lowest component of the hydraulics. So that makes it very difficult to actually bleed the system, and we recommend you take the following approach. Just make sure you've got plenty of fluid, pump the pedal a few times, and then just break the nut where the line goes into the master cylinder and release any air that might have accumulated there. Then move to the dampener valve between the master and slave, move to the top nut, just break that, release any air that might have accumulated there, and tighten it up again, and then bleed at the slave cylinder as you would normally bleed. You might have to do that 2 or 3 times to actually purge all of the air from the system, but it's well worth the effort. Final thing to look out for is the actual dampener valve itself. They can fail, but it doesn't present as a catastrophic failure that you have one day you have a clutch, the next day you don't have a clutch. The purpose of the dampener valve is to actually regulate the flow of fluid through the hydraulics, and what can happen is that when they begin to fail, that dampener valve will let oil through to the clutch side but won't let it back, and what that will present as a partially disengaged clutch. So pressure will build on the clutch side. You'll have the actuation system partially engaged permanently. The clutch will present as a slipping clutch and premature failure. The other thing that can happen is that that valve won't let enough fluid through to get release. So again, that will present as difficulty engaging or disengaging the gears or selecting gears, and it will happen progressively. Might not even happen in the workshop, might happen 2 months after the clutch has been fitted. Just to verify that that valve's in good shape, we recommend that you get a screwdriver in behind the fork, lever the fork to make sure that you've got mechanical release of the clutch. If that's the case, turn your attention to that dampener valve, and we recommend that if you don't have a good pedal, bypass that valve with a piece of clear tube. If suddenly you've got a good pedal, that means that that dampener valve needs to be replaced. We don't recommend that you permanently bypass that valve, it's there for a reason. Just go to the dealer, buy a new valve and replace it, and you should have a good pedal. So they're the 4 things to look out for with the Holden Rodeo, Jackeroo or Frontera. Just make sure that you've got the right bearing and that bearing has the circlip if required. Make sure that the fork is installed in the right way. Bleed the hydraulics thoroughly and keep an eye on that dampener valve. If you do those 4 things, you'll have a very smooth installation, trouble-free, great result, and if you need any more information, just give us a call on 1300 369 787.